May 27th, Lynchburg City Council Finance Committee meeting. I'm going to pass it over to Greg Patrick and Donna Witt to start with our general business quarterly reports.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Turn it over to Donna to run through our quarterly reports.
The first one is our
noted in your packet, they were having some issues with their software, so he did provide an updated one here when he came.
Thank you, members of council. And just to reiterate, we are sorry for the delay in getting this out. Our software decided, just as it was time to run this report, that it wanted to not be defined by date parameters, so you would have gotten a report with some very interesting numbers. We finished the third quarter pretty well for this year. A couple of big things to note. In January and February, we had some significant single-time expenses in utilities as well as some staff time due to the winter weather. We also experienced slightly lower financials as far as fares collected and ridership as well during those 2 months. That rebounded in March, which is pretty much what we've seen in past years. If we have extremely snowy, wintry weather, we typically experience a dip in ridership because businesses are closed, people try not to get out. So that was not unexpected. Generally, through this quarter, we've just been operating following the existing expenses that we've laid out. Advertising revenue is down a little bit. Non-operating revenues are down 31%, which actually is good because those are we only have revenues for those if we have an insurance claim or something else to offset it. So low insurance payments are a good thing because it means we have less accidents. One thing that you will note is a difference on this report from previous ones is the state operating. We have finally reached a far enough point in our microtransit demonstration project that we were able to accurately assign overhead costs. So we were able to start charging that back to this demonstration grant we have. So that will show that about 22% under we've been showing in state revenues now is showing slightly over because we are actually at a point where we can go back and assign those costs. So that brings our revenues on the state side up to where we expected for this year. Generally, wages are running on budget with the exception of some of our non-operation staff where we've been closing some gaps for coverage with people that were out either sick or for the first part of this quarter dealing with the operational issues with snow and snow removal. And then also if you'll look, we are starting to really see a impact from our insurance. We had a fairly large increase this past year. We've been able to mitigate some of that by having some staff vacancies where we have staff that this is their second career and they are not taking the insurance because they have other retirements, military retirement, et cetera. So that's helped to blunt some of that. And then tires are going to be 128% of budget for this quarter. And that simply is because of the timing. We had a number of tire purchases that were in early December, right before we had snow, that the bills didn't come in until actually February due to a billing issue on Michelin Corporate's part. So we just kind of have a little uptick in there, but we're well below budget for the year. And then one other change that you will see is in demand response. If you look at information technology, you're going to see a fairly large number for this current month. That is actually volatility in parts pricing. That has increased, and less volatility in pricing right now than volatility in availability. So we have actually started to increase the number of parts we keep on hand, which is why you're seeing a higher line in that other materials and supplies. That includes our hard parts. And so we're actually drawing a little bit more inventory on hand right now to try to mitigate some of this. It's not as bad as it was during COVID, but we've seen in the last couple of months, items that normally were back down to a 1-week turnaround have gone back up to 2 or 3 months. And so we're just having to stock more things and hold that as a higher value, unfortunately. So ending the quarter, we ended the quarter with a $59,100 surplus and running about $163,000 some change as a surplus for the year. So if there were any questions? Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff. Appreciate it.
All right.
Next up, we've got the Lynchburg Regional Airport Fund.
And Catherine Vance is here for said.
Okay. Welcome, Ms. Vance.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. As you're aware, Mr. Simon is out on parental leave, and as such, I will be presenting the third quarter 2025 financial report. I am Kathy Vance, and I am the Assistant Airport Director at the airport. Throughout the third quarter of FY25, the Airport Enterprise Fund continues to remain healthy and balanced while we continue to maintain our facilities and attempt to attract new businesses. Overall, the quarter in revenues, airport revenues have continued to remain strong, with third quarter direct operating revenues remaining slightly up compared to this time last year. Our total operating FY25 revenues are projected to be around $611,000, more than budget. In the areas of the Airfield Revenue Center, we have about 25 increased revenues and landing fees, which as a result, we have a few more aircraft coming in. The terminal revenue is projected at $341,000 in increased revenues. This is due to our high interest rates, our interest that we're getting on our money. Our new car rental agreements, which went into effect January 1st, our agreements were over 20 years old, so we revamped and redone all the 3 car companies. And updated parking equipment, which is allowing us to reflect the parking revenue in a better manner and option. General aviation, which is the tenant rents, is up about $35,000, and due to tenant rent increases, which usually happen around April and May of this past year, or this past month. Expenses, the airport is seeing increased expenses related to workforce expenses and utilities. The terminal expense is projecting $73,000 increase in the utilities and the custodial contract that we maintain. Administrative expenses is projecting $130,000 increase in the air service development, and I may remind you that the air service development, we do get a marketing grant, which is reimbursed by the state by 50%, and increases in law enforcement personnel, which is due to the increase in the flights that we're receiving, and the contract ARF services, which was renewed here in the last month. In our state airport aid, our revenues are projected to be $192,000 more budget due to receiving the additional grants, which we can receive $50,000 and a $25,000 grant. Bottom line, at this point, the airport is currently projecting a surplus in FY25 of $100,647. This concludes my third quarter report, and I'd be happy to take any questions that I may be able to answer, and if not, I will defer them to Mr. Simon.
Thank you, Ms. Vance. Does anybody have any questions for Ms. Vance?
Thank you. Yes.
No,
Go ahead.
no questions regarding your report, but my memory was just jogged. Mr. Patrick, if we could follow up, this was before Mr. Simon was director, but I would like to follow up with conversations we had started last year about bringing back the air show.
Yeah.
If we could follow back up, I know that we had talked about potentially talking with Liberty again and bringing one back, and I think the timeline would have been maybe starting that now, because it takes about 2 years,
Yes.
and I know there was interest.
There
in-
was a little bit of talk at our past airport commission meetings about
Okay.
that, which it would have reflected in this year.
Okay.
Because of the runway project that's getting ready to kick off June 1st, that would have prolonged it because that project is taking over the entire summer. So there is talk on our commission that is being brought up in talks about possibly bringing that back. But I will follow up and get you a more definite answer.
Great, cool. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Vance. All right, next we have the Lynchburg Regional Juvenile Detention Center, which will be Mr. Sellers. Good to see you again, sir.
Yes, sir. Good to see you. Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, committee members, city leadership. Here to present you the Detention Center's FY25 third quarter report. The Detention Center's revenue through FY25 third quarter was $2,561,874. The revenue sources include our charges for services, which are funds received for youth that's detained in the detention center, and that amounted to right around $1.5 million. We also received the Department of Juvenile Justice block grant, which supports the expenses contributed to operating the detention center, and that was right at $919,000. We also received funding from the U.S. Department of Agriculture of $38,171 for meals served to the youth in the detention center. Our miscellaneous and state ward per diem added another $5,000, and that represents funds received for youth that's committed to the state and awaiting transport. Our detention center's expenditures through FY25 third quarter was right at $2.3 million, or $2,389,752 to be exact. And our most significant line increase items were salaries and miscellaneous other charges. And we did have, we're doing some overtime, and also we're still short of just a few staff in the detention center. So our relief worker, we having full-time staff fill in some of those gaps. And also that salary increase is also part of the FY25 general wage increase too, that increased the salaries. Recap, our revenue through the third quarter was $2.5 million, and our expenditures were $2.3 million. Our current per diem rate is $330 at the detention center, and we averaged 18 youth compared to last quarter when it was 20 youth in the detention center. And just to note, Lynchburg accounts for over 66% of those youth. As of today, we do have 19 youth in the detention center, where 13 of those are from Lynchburg. And that concludes my detention center report, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Does anybody have any questions about the detention center report? All right, thank you. Moving on to the Children's Services Act Fund.
All right, yes, sir. So again, I'm here to present the Children's Services Act summary. Our CSA revenue through FY25 third quarter was $7,340,262. The revenue sources are public assistance, which accounts for about $5.5 million. Lynchburg City Schools with $147,000. Transferred from the general funds is $1.5 million, and our miscellaneous special welfare, which is right around $89,000. We experienced a 26% increase in revenue compared to the same quarter in the previous year. $1.9 million of that increase was for public assistance, and then there was another $19,000 for miscellaneous and special welfare, which is all attributed to the growth of the population that we have in the facilities, or in the CSA, I should say. CSA's expenditures through FY25 third quarter were $8.5 million, and that's a 21% increase compared to the same quarter last year. This increase is primarily due to allocations to foster care, special education, and community-based services. It's important to note, though, with CSA that this third quarter report does not reflect our current third quarter adjustments. And my understanding is those third quarter adjustments will be approved later on this afternoon. Also, as another thing worth mentioning is that with our revenues from the state, oftentimes it's a month behind. So if this report ended in March, we won't get those revenues from the state until April. So those two things to note when you look at the report as a whole. Other than that, that concludes my CSA report.
Thank you for those clarifications. Anybody have any questions about the CSA? All right, thank you, Mr. Sellers.
Thank you.
Moving on to the Water Operating Fund. Welcome, Mr. Mitchell.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. For the water fund, our overall water revenues are expected to be about $168,000 less than their budget. This is primarily due to lower water use in both the contract revenues and as well as the citywide revenue, or citywide water use. We're approximately down 9% below our average usage for water over the last several years. And then the revenues, the loss in revenue were about $320,000 less in revenues due to water use. That's offset by about $152,000 in interest earnings. For our expenses, Overall water expenses are expected to be about $134,000 less than budget. Our O&M expenses, operation and maintenance expenses are expected to be about right at $300,000 over budget. $70,000 of that is related to overtime for personnel services to cover vacancies. And then about $21,000 is in supplies and materials, and that's just inflationary increases. And then $11,000 in contractual services, savings in contractual services. That's offset by about $200,000 due to a large self-insurance claim that is split between the water fund and the sewer fund. I think that went before city council in a closed session. These increases are offset by about $49,000 less in capital outlay due to deferral of a new vehicle purchase, and about $385,000 less in debt service due to project delays related to easement issues and railroad permitting and equipment lead time. Overall, the water fund is in good financial shape, meeting or exceeding council's financial policies with a debt coverage ratio of 1.21 and a fund balance of 31%. I'll be glad to answer any questions on the water fund.
Does anybody have any questions?
No, sir.
All right. No questions for me. Moving on to sewer fund.
All right. The sewer fund, overall, we're expecting revenues to be about $1.3 million more than budget. Charges for services are expected to be about $150,000 more than budget. Of that, non-contract sales, which is also impacted by lower water use, is down $545,000. This is offset by additional septic collar charges of about $500,000 and additional connection and availability for the revenue of $205,000. Contract revenue expected to be about $691,000 above budget, and this is mostly due to additional high-strength waste surcharges for our 2 industrial contracts. Recently, we had at a recent council meeting, we discussed CertainTeed's water and wastewater contract. While I should have noted then, but while their water and sewer use rates are lower than the citywide average, their high-strength waste rates are much higher than the citywide rates for that. Sewer expenses are expected to be $465,000 less than budget. Of this, we expect our operation and maintenance budget to be about $39,000 more. And primary reasons for this are $144,000 in overtime expenses, lower chemical prices than anticipated, saving approximately $73,000, about $200,000 less in landfill fees due to driver vacancies. So we dispose of our sludge in 3 different manners. We land apply it, and we dispose of it at the regional landfill, and then we dispose of it at the landfill in Amelia County. And if we don't have drivers available, then we have to contract it out to either haul it to Amelia or land apply it. So some of those fees for sludge disposal shift around from category to category depending upon whether it's contractual services or our employees that are doing the hauling. So overall, that's kind of balances out. But then we also had an offset, which is use of less contractors for sewer repairs. And then, again, the $200,000 associated with the self-insurance claim. And.
Any questions on sewer?
Sorry, I'm almost finished.
Okay.
See approximately $210,000 in capital outlay due to a deferral of a sewer camera truck retrofit, and then we're anticipating less debt service of about $300,000. So again, in good financial shape with the sewer fund.
Thank you. Any questions on sewer fund? All right, thank you for that. And next is stormwater.
All right, for the stormwater fund. Stormwater revenues are expected to be about $84,000 above budget, with with 24,000 of that associated with new impervious area. 60,000 is related to interest earnings. Expenses are expected to be about $193,000 below budget. Only a minor exceedance in operational and a maintenance budget of about $600. Capital outlay is slightly above budget by $3,900. And the additional expenses are offset by about $197,000 in debt service, again, related to easement, project delays related to easements and permitting issues. And we're in good shape overall with financial policies in the Stormwater Fund. Be glad
Is
to
that it?
answer any questions.
Any questions on the stormwater fund? No, sir. All right, thank you, Mr. Mitchell, appreciate it.
you.
All right, next up is going to be the third quarter report on the general fund.
Thank you.
Ms. Witt.
So this report is through March 31st, and if you look at it closely, you'll see our expenditures are slightly ahead of our revenue collections, but expenditures are at 70%, which is good. It's a little below where you would think you would be at 75% for third quarter. And our revenues, many of our larger revenues aren't totally received. Real estate's May 15th is our last installment. Personal property's June 5th. Business license is May 1st. And then, of course, our sales, meals, and lodgings are received a little bit later because of how they're reported to the Commissioner of Revenue. So we're doing okay. We're not great, but we're doing okay at this point. I'd like our revenues to come in a little bit stronger than what I'm seeing, but we're doing okay. We're saving money on our expenditure side, and departments are working really hard to tighten their belt a little bit, and here at the end to make sure we finish strong. Happy to answer any questions.
How do we compare to where we were last year at this time?
We're actually a little behind where we were last year. Our revenues came in a little bit stronger last year at this point.
Which ones particularly? Do you have an idea?
Sales, meals, lodging. Our personal property's looking good. We're about $1 million ahead of where we were at this time last year.
Just looking to see if I got any questions on anything. Nope, I think, does anybody have any questions about the general fund summary? All right, moving on to general fund reserve for contingencies.
And we have no new items presented, so we're still at a balance of $1,033,840 plus the $50,000 for the manager's discretionary fund.
Excellent. All right, any questions on that? Next is going to be the monthly tax revenues comparison.
Okay, and this is better than last month. So we noted that we were thinking the snow messed us up, because it's the first time we've had snow in a while of any measure. And so our sales tax, we came in just very slightly above budget by $88,000, which is helping us come in through March at $220,000 above budget. This is a lot less above budget than what we're normally seeing, but we are still within budget. The consumer utility tax electric were $100,000 above budget. March came in right there at budget. It's going to be interesting to see how this cool May plays into these numbers. For meals tax, much better than last month, came in $156,000 above budget. And you'll note that we were down quite a bit in February. Some of that is timing. You'll see that we collected more than what was assessed. So that was a timing issue that helped make that up a little bit. But we're still $890,000 below budget through March. Lodging tax, a little more of the same. We're down about $362,000 below budget, which is not what we're used to seeing. But we were flat with budget for March. March is generally a better month than February, so it's nice to be right in there at budget. And then amusement tax, we're about $10,000 below. So if you just add these 5 revenues up, we're about $941,000 below budget. So that's a little concerning, but I do know that we've got savings on the expenditure side. And so we're okay. We're about $100,000 ahead through March in investment, so that's helping a little bit too. So we'll be okay. It's just a little tighter than what I like.
So, just kind of comparing this, looking at last year, I've got last year's in front of me too, and it looks like we came in 100,500 below in March. And then this year, in March, we're looking at, and I'm looking at specifically at the sales and use tax right now, just going down the list. We're about 88,000 ahead. Then, that was a very large meals tax number. How often is it over 2 million? Not very often.
Not that often.
And that's showing 156,000 ahead. And then when I look at 2024 and meals tax, in March, we were 192,000 behind. I'd be interested to see kind of what, when I look, because I'm just looking month to month, not looking at the whole picture. I do see that it looks like we came in about 15,000 on the meals tax behind the whole budget last year. So I'm just kind of curious what that looks like exactly, where were we last year at this point? What did it look like? Because it looks to me like we're performing stronger. And if we're not, I'd like to know that. But when I see these numbers, just for March, I'm just looking at just at March. That's what I got highlighted right here. I'd just be curious to see how that,
Well, we
if there's a way to
budgeted,
march that out.
when you factor in the growth that we anticipated in '25, that's why it's a little less there. We anticipated larger growth in '24 and kind of came in just slightly under
Just
that.
slightly under it.
But we did not budget as much growth for '25, so that makes those numbers kind of even out a little bit. So
Got it.
that's what you're comparing.
Okay. Anybody have any other questions on the quarterly reports any questions? All right, the next one is gonna be the position vacancy report.
And we did finally get one uploaded. We were having an issue with this report and getting the department to be reflected on the report. So that's why I passed out one that you can actually see the department. And if you want this electronically, I can give it to you. But this at least makes it a little clearer about which department is associated with the position, especially when it's like an administrative service associate. You don't know what department they're in. And this is all funds. So water, sewer, stormwater, airport, they're all represented.
So this is great. I really appreciate you guys doing this. I think it's helpful to see 110 vacancies across all funds that's, what percentage of the workforce is that? 7%, something like that? Somewhere in that ballpark?
1,400 overall, if you compare this, roughly.
Well, but these are full-time, so the 1,400 includes hourly, so.
7.9.
7.9, there you go.
Thank you. I was off. No, this is helpful. If it's possible in the future, what would be really helpful to see would be to see how long it's been vacant. I think that would be a helpful thing to see. I think it would also be helpful to see, based on that, what is the dollar value going towards that managed vacancy? I think you said 2 million is what you normally put in year for year. So how's that add up to that? And that kind of would be helpful to see that information.
And
We do have some data limitations around length of vacancy. Some of it is imperfect data, some of it is how we have filled position numbers in the past, where typically in a perfect world, say you have 4 vacant administrative associate ones, or whatever your position is. When you fill one of those vacancies, you would put that in the position number related to the one that has been vacant the longest, and then you repeat that. Typically, what we've been doing, though, is putting it into the position number related to the position that has been vacant for the shortest period of time. So it makes it look like some of those positions have been vacant far longer than they have. We're trying to figure out a way to provide that number in a way that is meaningful.
Sure.
So we're working through that, and we're aware of because that's something that we want to be able to look at as
Yeah,
well.
sure. I think it'd be
So we're working through it.
a really helpful piece of information to see. Does anybody have any questions on the vacancy report?
So just give us a total amount of vacancy savings we have as far as persons who are not hired. The total dollar amount pretty much, what you track anyway, correct? Pretty much.
yeah, we calculate it every couple of months just to make sure we're on target to meet that $2 million. But it requires that you take where you are currently and just kind of push that forward to make sure you're in the ballpark. So it's not exact science to you, get to the end of the fiscal year. But we
Yeah.
can provide an estimate.
So this is point in time. So
Yes.
for instance, if earlier in the year, so it's easy to tell you based on point in time, how much vacancy savings we would be showing. But what really matters, especially at this point, is how does this point in time compare to what the first 8 or 9 months of the year have looked at? So I think we can probably get to where we're providing you something meaningful, but it's not, to Donna's point, it's
won't
not
be
quite as
exact
straightforward
science.
as it might seem.
And how does it calculate persons who vacancies with they had seniority? Is that because of the position title? If they've been here, because some positions might be vacant, might have been a long-term position, a long-term employee, might need a higher salary. So is that even a factor to the equation? or-
Not exactly, because really what you're doing is we would look at this payroll that just posted this week, and then we would just project that forward for the last, we have 2 more pay periods, well, really 3, because of the accrual. But, and we would just kind of make our guesstimate that this is what it's gonna look like those last payrolls, and then that becomes our estimate. So we don't know that exact number until all the payrolls post. So you're looking at, if there was, a long-term position that got filled lower, that's gonna help with the managed vacancy. It's gonna drop to the bottom.
Okay. Thank you, that's a lot of work. Thank you, appreciate it.
Mayor, any questions? No. I've got one follow-up based on what you just said. Would one of those systems that we don't have make it easier to track these things?
Not necessarily. Position control, because of internal controls, is done through HR.
Sure.
So that HR system has to make sure that it's accurate in how they're filling those positions and then how it flows into budget. So you gotta get it right here before it's gonna be right here, but it wouldn't make,
But I guess the question is there something that communicates across departments that would,
we use .NET, and work with HR to get it correct. But, like Greg was saying, some of it is just how those position numbers have been utilized. So we're working with HR to make sure that there's kind of more of a systematic way to do that, and that's gonna fix this.
got it.
And typically, if you look at, you take the best, most state-of-the-art budget system that exists out there, the personnel budgeting is typically done through an update from the HR, the Human Resources Information System. So even in the best budget system that exists, those numbers are only as good as what the HR system can feed into it. And where it becomes a real challenge is how do you budget for a vacant position, right? Because what we know about a vacant position is every position has a minimum salary. But we also know that it is unlikely that we're going to fill every position at its minimum salary. Some we do, depending on the types of positions. Some end up being filled at, substantially more than the minimum salary, simply based on, who was hired, and what their level of experience is. So projecting and being able to accurately forecast personnel costs is always going to be an art as much as a science. And I know between Donna and I, we have very many years of trying to do it accurately, and it's tough. It's always tough.
Yeah, I'm just curious about that, because if there's something that would make it smoother or easier, any of the process, I'd be interested in hearing about that. And then I think something else to consider too is, are we doing any overhiring right now with some of this? Because that's something that factors into it as well, right? Because some departments where if you have like police, fire, where you're rotating retirements and recruit academies at the same time, I know that there's been in the past overhiring. Is that still happening?
There was in the past. I'm not sure we have any at this point. And looking at our budgeteers.
There might be a one-off overhire in Fleet right
in Fleet.
now, where we were projecting a retirement. And I know we have in fire, in the past, based off of the timing of filling recruit classes, but I don't know if we actually have anyone in overhire positions at this point, do we?
I don't,
think so.
off the top of my head, I don't think so.
Water resources, but it was a position for public works, so it's still technically a city position.
Oh, okay.
So when I'm looking at this, just for example, on police, we've got 17 hard vacancies for police officers and 5 for police recruits. So those are actually hard vacancies, positions that
They are,
are not filled currently.
that's currently, and I don't know if that's, we're ready to go into academy. Like if they have people ready to go into an academy, I'm not sure where we are in the cycle for the academy.
Police and fire vacancies are the most difficult because they're not hired necessarily throughout. They're hired
Sure.
when you're going to run academies. So all of those questions are going to require an additional level of analysis.
Got it. All right, thank you. I think that moves us on to roll call. Councilmember Wilder,
No items.
Councilmember Reed,
I don't have anything.
Mayor Taylor.
Yes, thank you for all your hard work. You put this together, you laid it out, thank you.
I appreciate this managed vacancy report. I think this is really helpful. I know you said there's some nuance to it, but figuring out a way to quantify what it actually means, because I know if you add it, you can't add up the annual salaries and throw the benefits on and get a realistic number. But this is helpful. I think it's a good snapshot. Have you seen the HR reports that they do for Lynchburg City Schools? Have you ever seen those?
I have
Board meetings?
Donna has.
No, I don't
I'll
think
see if I
it
can
is.
pull one. They do it, I think, monthly. And something to that effect really would be helpful to see, I think it's good to track, one, where our vacancies are occurring, and then 2, why they're occurring. So,
Okay. Excellent.
all right, our next Finance Committee meeting will be,
June something,
June
I gotta
24th.
read
June
it,
24th.
June 24th, 2025 at 3 PM. This meeting is adjourned.
Welcome to City Council Work Session, May 27, 2025 work session. The city manager will go over the agenda.
All right, thank you, Mayor, Vice Mayor, members of City Council. Today, for our work session, we have Dr. Holly Jennings, who's with us. She's going to go over some employee survey results. She is good practice of any good organization is kind of constantly taking the temperature of the employees, and she did so and has and coordinated this effort. How many months ago now at this point? 2 years? Almost a year. Almost a year, okay. And so she's going to engage you on those survey results. Business item briefings, we know those are items that are positioned ultimately for your vote. This afternoon's our opportunity as staff to engage you about those potential items that will come before you so that you can ask your questions and or prepare for when it's time for a vote. You then have roll call. Two things for closed session. One is a cleanup from the last time that we were together. Then, Mayor, before I turn it back over to you, I thought I'd acknowledge a couple different things from just this past weekend. I want to say thank you to all of those. Yesterday was Veterans Day, and that there was an opportunity to celebrate Memorial Day. So I'm sorry, Memorial Day. Celebrate, I jumped out. Memorial Day, and wanted to thank all those. My grandparents served in the military. I know that many of you have spouses who currently serve or have served, or you yourself have served. So it was a good day for memoranda that there's some events on Monument Terrace. And then also, over the weekend, had the opportunity to attend Dr. Owen Carwell's both viewing and funeral. I know that the mayor was there, and the remarks that were penned on behalf of each one of you were read aloud by Dr. Gloria Preston, so they were very thankful and very receptive to that. It was very good. I also want to thank staff who participated by making sure that access to and from Diamond Hill Baptist Church was with ease, and a certain amount of, we understand what kind of stature Dr. Carwell had in our community, and so thankful for him and what he was to us, and so I thought I'd take that time to acknowledge both those things and turn it back to you, Mayor.
Just calling on Dr. Holly Jennings, employees survey results.
Good afternoon, Mayor, Vice Mayor, Council. So Councilman Missions had reached out to us several weeks ago now to inquire about the employee survey results. I know Councilman Missions had asked about a couple of departments, and I provided you all with all of the department results. I will not be going over department results tonight. That gets more into evaluating directors and how they're managing their departments, and that's more under the city manager's purview. So tonight I'm sticking to citywide level results to provide to you this evening to kind of share with you the perceptions that the employees provided us with almost a year ago now. So Mitch, if you want to go to the first slide. Just a little background about the survey, so I'm going to apologize in advance. I'm going to nerd out a little bit and take us all back to stats class for a few moments, so just hang in there with me. The survey was administered in July of 2024. We had 513 participants. That number is important because anytime you're doing any type of research, you want to make sure you have a good sample size. That sample size is important so that you can look at confidence level and margin of error. So again, back to our stats class. In order for us to have a 95% confidence level, we had to get at least 306 participants out of our 1,493 employees. In order to make sure that our results would be probable, that they would reflect the attitudes of our sample. And our sample would be the employees of Lynchburg. We got 513 participants, which was well above that, around 34% of employees. So we were confident in feeling like we had a pretty good sample of the people who work for the city of Lynchburg, so we kind of know the attitudes of our workforce. We also needed to take a look at who participated in the survey. That's the other part of looking at your sample size. Every department participated except the assessor's office, and that was not for any particular reason other than the assessor's office has been really busy here lately. And they're a smaller department, so we did not feel like it altered the overall sample. Every department had participation that ranged from 27% to 100%. So when you're doing research, when you're doing surveys, you want to aim for at least 20%. That's kind of the golden standard in doing surveys. And so all of our departments were above that as well. And then we also looked at employee demographics to make sure that all of the demographics within the city were represented. So that chart, what you see there is the demographic column, and then who participated in the survey, and then the percent of our employee population. And so kind of the first line, you'll see females. There are 44% females in the city of Lynchburg that are employed by the city of Lynchburg, and around 45% of the survey participation was female respondents. And you can kind of see on down from there. I won't read each of them to you. A couple columns to take into consideration are the prefer not to say. Some folks don't like to identify their demographics within a survey. Anytime you're taking a survey or anytime you give a response to something that you think someone might not like, you often don't want to be identified. So between gender, 15% said they prefer not to say, and race, 21% said they preferred not to say. So we feel like that based on the demographics and the number of people that participated in the survey, we had a pretty accurate reflection of our employee attitudes. Mitch, if you want to go to the next slide. So when we structured the survey, we wanted to make sure that we were using good research methods and good research techniques in doing so. Not only do you want a valid and reliable survey, you want to make sure you're actually surveying information that you want. For example, we wanted to know how we are meeting our expectations within the city, so we wouldn't structure questions that were outside of that realm. So in looking at that, we posed pretty neutral questions that were aimed at finding out whether or not, as an organization, we're meeting expectations. So if I said that I agreed with a question, typically that's a positive result, meaning that I am agreeing that we're meeting those expectations. And if you disagreed, it was an indication that we're not meeting those expectations. We used the standard Likert scale throughout the survey, with the answers ranging from does not apply to strongly agree. The way that the survey is set up is each one of those responses gets assigned a point. So does not apply as a 1, strongly disagree as a 2, disagree as a 3, slightly disagree as a 4, all the way up to strongly agree, which is a 7. And the reason I'm giving you this level of details is because it's going to matter in a minute. The higher the score, the weighted average, the more positive results. So again, if I strongly agree with something, I'm strongly agreeing that we're meeting expectations. Well, what happens is when you have 513 respond to a specific question, 513 people respond to a specific question, if the score comes out to, let's say, a 5.5, that means the majority of those 513 people fell on the agree side of the range, because you take those specific numbers and you add them up with the 513 and average it out to find what your average score for each question is, so that you know kind of the overall attitudes of the whole population. And then we broke that down by individual departments as well, and we have provided that information to the departments. So again, higher the score, more positive. Anything of 4 or below would be considered negative, because that would mean employees are disagreeing with that expectation. So that would be more like if it does not, we're not meeting that expectation. So with that said, let's skip on to the next slide. I will tell you, I have on my notes because I knew I would miss something. I will tell you that in designing the survey, we also included one reversed scored question. That's just good technique when you're developing a survey. When you do a reverse scored question, if you want most of your expectations to be, I am agreeing to those, you want to put one question in there that you expect the answer to be disagree. Otherwise, you have no way of telling if people are just going through and clicking. You have no way of telling if a computer bot is taking your survey, because you would actually have to read the question to know you're supposed to disagree with it. So we do insert one reverse scored question to make sure that it's actual people taking the survey. So with that being said, our overall citywide average was a 5.7, meaning well on the agree side of the range and meeting expectations. Our individual departments ranged from a 5.3 to a 6.3, so there was no department that fell below the agree range. So all of our departments and citywide, we are meeting expectations above the agree level. Mitch, if you want to go to the next slide. These are the highest scored responses in the survey. So at the end of it, those numbers, that's what the weight of that question was based on the 513 responses. So employees in my department treat the citizens of Lynchburg with respect. That's a 6.2, so that's well above the agree range. My work impacts the goals of my department. I feel respected by my direct supervisor. employees in my department listen to what the citizens of Lynchburg have to say. So if I had to take that official survey language and kind of just break it down into layman's terms, if I were going to say, hey, why would I want to come work for the city of Lynchburg? I would tell you, employees would tell you that I really get to help the community in my job. I actually get to make an impact on the things that I'm doing, and I like the people that I work for. That would be the layman's terms of what those survey questions are saying. I know in the Finance Committee, they discussed vacancies earlier, so anybody's listening at home, apply. We're a great place to work. And I felt like that this was a true reflection of our workforce. So Mitch, if you want to hang on over to the next slide. So these are the only two questions that fell below the agree range. These were the only two that fell in the disagree range. And I'm not too terribly surprised by that. So the two questions were, most days I do not experience any conflict in my role, and most days I experience a low level of stress. So a 4.5 and a 4.9 are in the slightly disagree range, but still in the disagree range. Based on the work that our employees do every single day, I'm not surprised that our employees have conflict and stress that they have to deal with. It just isn't, it's something that when you're a public servant, that's kind of part of the job. And we'll talk more about the response to that here in a few minutes. Mitch, if you want to flip over. So of the 513 people that took the survey, 306 of those people had a written response. There's a comment section of the survey that basically is an open-ended question. All good surveys have those in them that say, is there anything that I didn't ask that basically you want to tell me about working for the city of Lynchburg? This is a summary of the top responses in that section. The first was people talking about their positive experiences working within the city. A lot of that was based on their work environment and having supportive colleagues. The second was concerns about communication. This always has been a topic of conversation around communication. Folks want more involvement in decision-making. They want to know what's going on. They want to know basically what's happening. And I've heard our city manager say oftentimes that if information is currency, we need to make sure that we're giving it away. And as a city, we've taken a lot of steps with our communications department to make sure that we're continuing to give that currency away as much as possible because people want to stay informed. The next is pay and career progression issues. There were comments around pay for positions, especially compared to the private sector and what that looks like. And also folks wanting to make sure that we have specific career progression plans in all of our departments. You guys have seen that in public safety. Those are very clear. Other departments wanting similar types of, hey, I know what I need to do to go from one progression to the next. The next is workload and staffing. Anytime we have vacancies, we've seen this in the police department, that creates extra work on the other staff, and it can lead to burnout, it's stressful, so continuing to make sure that we're looking at recruitment efforts and getting vacancies filled, because when those vacancies are not filled, our staff, they're feeling it. The next is diversity and inclusion. This is reflective of the society we live in general. There were comments in there around, I don't want any more diversity and inclusion training, and there were comments in there around, I want more diversity and inclusion training, and we need more diversity and inclusion training. So we have both sides of the spectrum in the comments section of the survey. 6 is facilities and safety. We had comments around continuing to make sure that we're improving spaces and making sure that we're keeping our safety measures up to date. Again, this is across departments. It wasn't specific to any particular departments, but that continues to be a concern for employees, is making sure that our facilities are in good shape and that we're continuing to make sure our safety measures are up to date. And then the last was appreciation for employee engagement programs. We got a lot of feedback about that in the survey. I'll talk more about those in a minute, but specifically mentioned were the wellness events, employee engagement events, and specifically communication from the city manager's office. And so that's summary of our 306 comments in the survey, which I've read through all of those and coded those. And that is more of the other side of data that people don't often think about, is you can't just run numbers. You have to go through and read all of those and code those into categories. So Mitch, if you want to flip over to the next slide. So basically, in response to the survey, we go through, we analyze the data, we look, see what are we doing well, what are concerns, what things can we continue to do as a city to make sure we're supporting both the areas that we're doing well and the areas we need to work on. We also analyze it down on the departmental level, and we meet with the departments and their leadership teams to go over those results. So myself, Greg Patrick, Kent White, we went and met with every single department director and their leadership team to go through those survey results. Each department has a team of folks that are working on strategies that are data informed around how they can improve their results as well. So we look at it from the citywide level, the departments are looking at it at the department level. Some of the strategies that we have been focusing on employee wellness initiatives, we've had over a dozen of those this year so far. That ranges from sponsoring employees to participate in the Virginia 10 miler, to creating different types of exercise incentives, going to the gym, exercise programs. We've had events come actually to the city where people can go participate in a line dancing class to get up and get moving and participate in that. We've also worked with our healthcare providers. They have provided some initiatives as well. I know Alicia and I in the office have participated in a few of those. There was a New Year challenge that had basically a card of all kinds of different things to try for the new year that you may not have tried yet, and you kind of go through and check those off over a four-week period. And Alicia and I both were trying really hard to get some of those things knocked off the list. Drinking the 6 glasses of water a day was kind of hard, but we do that across the city to encourage taking care of yourself, considering 2 of the lowest scored questions are stress and conflict. So we want to continue to do things for employees that make sure that they are taking care of themselves. Another thing that we offer is first responder support programs. Currently, the police department, the fire department were initial participants in this as well. It has expanded to our 911 center, our human services department, and now our Commonwealth Attorney's Office. And basically what that is a program that we have through Impact Living Services, where they come in and do counseling, peer support, debriefing for our first responders that are maybe having to respond to some of the more tragic things that happen in our city that they're having to face every day, to help them get through those situations. So that is something we provide in the city as well. And then the last is the citywide and department employee engagement events. We offer, I've seen some of you guys at some of those events. That's an opportunity for our employees to come together, network, see other employees that they don't often see, maybe in other departments. We have speakers come in to talk things about wellness or, financial planning. We had a civility training not too long ago. We had American Sign Language class not too long ago. And these were based on topics that employees said were of interest to them, that we're making available so employees can continue to expand things that they are interested in the city as well. So with that, I think that was a really fast overview of the employee survey and our response to it, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Is there any discussion? Mr. Wild?
Go ahead. You go ahead first. You hit your hand up.
Mr. Deemer?
Have we ever done this exact survey before, or a survey like it?
Yes, so my first year here, we started an employee survey, and it's a biannual survey. We don't do it every year. Research says if you do it too often, it starts to kind of skew your results. So it's biannual. We do it every other year. So it's been done twice now. Be done again next summer.
Has it always been a Likert scale, same sort of deal?
Yeah, the survey did not change. We want to kind of have longitudinal results. In order to do that, you have to pretty much leave the questions the same.
Right.
Yeah, the only thing that we added in this year is we added some questions around communication and how employees prefer to receive communication. And so we asked questions like, in an emergency, how would you like to get that information? Do you want someone to call you, text you, email you, see it on social media, so forth and so on? That was the only thing that was different from the first year to the second year.
So is there any trends, survey graphics you've come up with since we've done this before?
I can tell you that citywide, our results were exactly the same from 2 years ago, which was good. We had positive results the first time we did it. We had positive results again the second time we did it. I can tell you some departments saw fluctuations in a good way, in the sense that they saw employee morale continue to improve in their department, which I think was very rewarding for the departments that have put in a lot of work around that. And so to see that actually in the data was encouraging for the directors that were putting in a lot of work.
Thank you. That's
Yes,
my
sir.
question.
Dr. Wild?
Yes, thank you. Thank you for the information. This is very helpful. I really appreciate it to see that the staff does an employee survey. We thank you so much for that. Question, you mentioned that they have services for the first responders,
Yes,
the
sir.
impact living services.
Yes.
Is that open to council members?
We can always inquire.
Okay.
Yes.
You crowd reminds one to know. I'm just asking if that's possible. Another question, this might be more of a personnel question. I find it related to your survey. I'm just always interested when the police department comes or the fire department comes, I always ask, does the hiring reflect our community? And again, make sure we understand, I'm not saying hire people based on their color of the skin or their sexual orientation or if they're female, whatever. I'm not saying that. I'm just asking, do we ever do a study to see how does our staff reflect the staff of our community?
Yes, we're required to submit that information every 2 years to the Office of Civil Rights through the Department of Justice because of grants that we have. So we are required to analyze that information. We've done a lot of work around making sure that we continue to recruit in multiple and various ways, and maybe in places that we haven't recruited before, to continue to make sure that we're trying to diversify and make sure we're hiring folks that are reflective of the community. So that's something we've worked very hard on, especially with the police department. That's something that I've been personally involved in as part of the recruitment and retention initiatives, and continuing to make sure that we're expanding our outreach. Elsa, who's the new recruiter for the police department, has been fantastic in going to places far and wide. I did research around, I think you guys have heard me talk about this before, maybe some areas that would be helpful in our recruiting because there's a high interest in being in law enforcement, but yet maybe in areas in which there's interest, but the pay is low, or the funding for law enforcement in those areas is low. So we thought, hey, let's go check out some of the programs and colleges that offer degrees in public safety and see if we can't recruit. So Elsa sent me a message from Kentucky and said, thank you, Holly, I appreciate this. But she had a really great time, and we've seen the fruits of those efforts recently in the diversity that we've had in those departments, as well as our vacancies continuing to go down in our public safety, which was the concern in the beginning. I think we started with 30. We're down to 16 or 17 right now. So fire department is fully staffed right now, no vacancies in the fire department. So continuing to make strides in those areas as well.
So maintaining our strong requirements that we have for city employees, but just making sure we diversify that net, make sure we're looking at all places, and make sure our persons feel welcome, but maintaining the strong requirements that we have, not hiring people based on color, but again, making sure we just throwing that net out there, recruiting in all sorts, all places, where a person not just going to Virginia Tech, but going to Virginia State. You know,
Yes.
so those things of that nature, all schools, not because of certain schools, the demographics of those, but just kind of throwing that net around to all persons in our community. I think that's obviously helpful. I'm always wondering too, curious about the upper management makeup. You know, what does that upper management look like in our community? It's part of that Survey study. Is it a part of that as well?
Yeah, so we have to analyze based on the Department of Labor's job codes and categories, and that includes an administrative level category, and we have to provide that information, like I said, every 2 years. This summer was the most recent time that we provided that information, so we do have to do that analysis as well.
You know, one of the things, and I'm going to say this, but one of the things that touched me more so was when I went to a retirement program, and I heard a retired employee mention how coming up, he felt because of his skin color, he was excluded from certain like study groups and things of that nature. Just make sure there's an outlet for persons like that. They can share that. And the thing was so powerful, he started crying. And this is a strong man that you wouldn't expect to do that. And the room was silent because he shared his frustration and being excluded from certain groups and study groups I see you doing this, I see you doing that, but they're going to exclude me because of the color of my skin. But just something for staff members, we always need to be careful of that. Council, just people in general, make sure we're all welcoming to all persons and that no one feels excluded. But thank you for this
Yes, sir.
information. This is very helpful. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Is there anyone else? Mr. Mission?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I got one follow-up question with you. You just said that the fire department's fully staffed, but the position vacancy report they gave us in the finance committee meeting says there's 4 firefighter BLS vacancies, 3 firefighter ALS vacancies, 1 master firefighter vacancy, and 1 captain vacancy.
So I will tell you, I don't know if that includes vacancies for the new fire station, but I will tell you there's a 2-week lag between if they're fully staffed versus
Sure.
what will be on your report, because it takes a full pay period for that to be updated. And I'm not sure if you're aware, they just had a graduation. I think several of us from our office went to it last week where they had advanced provider graduation as well as promotion ceremony. So those may not be reflected in that report because of that 2-week period.
I'm just curious, that's all. I
Yep.
know that there's sometimes lags in some things, but
Yep, it takes
Just
about
wanna make
2
sure
weeks
we're-
for that to get updated because it won't cycle through until a full pay period has come through.
got it. Thank
Yep.
you.
Yes, sir.
Is there anyone else? No? Thank you, Ms.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Next item is business briefing. Community Development Block Grant and Homes. This will appear on council for action on June 10th. Ms. Melva Walker.
Good afternoon, Mayor Taylor, Vice Mayor Deemer, and members of City Council. City Council will conduct a public hearing on June 10th for the 2025-2029 5-year consolidated plan and program year 2025 fiscal year 2026 annual action plan for the Community Development Block Grant and Home Program. These plans outline the citizen participation process through stakeholder consultation meetings and public meetings, the city's housing and homeless needs, housing market analysis, and the strategic plan for the projects to be funded over the next 5 years. City staff has received the final entitlement allocations. Therefore, the proposed projects and funding allocations for fiscal year '26 are as follows, or are on the screen there, and I'll just make a note that we received $28,357 in additional community development block grant funds and $17,743 in home funds. So those projects numbers there have been reflected in the increased amounts.
Is there any discussion? Mr. Wilder, Dr. Wilder?
Yes, sir, thank you. I serve in the committee, the CDBG committee, also with Councilman Timmer, as well appreciate the staff, and especially the community members, because it's community representatives on that committee. They have a voice of where they want to see the projects. And I know that for the Dunbar Community Yard, it was a part of the Diamond Hill project, and the team had several meetings with the residents in that Ward 2 and Diamond Hill especially, about what they wanted to see in that particular area. And it took those concerns and questions and put together a plan. So I think it's just so amazing. I just love to see our citizens get involved and our staff work with them to kind of cultivate those plans and all that. But I really appreciate the work you're doing. Thank you.
Anyone else? Ms. Timber?
I'll just affirm Dr. Wilder's comments. Thank you, Mayor. I'm sorry, I missed the last meeting. My little guy's been sick and I've been sick. But with the increase of funds, I know that a lot of that's at the federal level, but you all have positioned things very well in order to receive and capture those funds and allocate them well. So congratulations on the increase in funding, and thank you for all your hard work on that.
So I'd like to thank Ms. Walker for all her hard work she put into this program. She get the funds and she know where to place them and help take care of the community. She's reaching back, and that's important. Thank you.
She knows that law very well. She's amazing.
Yes. Next item is Derelict Buildings Ordinance Amendment. This item will appear before council for action on June 10th. Mr. Tom Martin.
Good afternoon, Mayor, Vice Mayor, members of council. The city's legislative agenda requested that the General Assembly remove the civil penalties exemption for commercial and industrial buildings. Delegate Wendell Walker introduced a House bill that removed that exemption and allowed the same $500 monthly penalty for commercial and industrial derelict buildings as is currently allowed for residential. Delegate Walker's bill was ultimately passed by the General Assembly and signed into law by Governor Youngkin. If passed by council on your June 10th meeting, this would become effective on July the 1st.
Thank you. Is there any discussion? Mr. Ferrari?
Thank you. How would this be used in combination with what's proposed in the budget, $750,000 in demo funds?
Well, so the $500 monthly penalty goes back into the general fund, and it's used to offset those costs.
Got that. How would it be used as teeth?
As teeth. So on the residential side, we have had very good response from derelict property owners that once they know that they're going to get a $500 monthly bill, they either submit a plan to renovate the building or they sell it to someone who will. So it's really an incentive for people to transfer ownership of the property to somebody that's going to do something with it.
It's something I certainly support. I am inclined to pursue these routes before we would step in and use tax dollars to demo buildings. It's just a personal preference on my own end. However, as far as this is concerned, I'm wholly supportive of it.
So just as a note, you can, the city, if adopted, the city could impose the penalty up to the cost of demolition. And as we know, demolishing commercial properties is much more expensive than residential, so it would take a very long time to do that. Again, as we've presented to council many times, our goal is rehabilitation of buildings. So to us, it's more of an incentive to get the buildings into the ownership of people who actually do something with them.
Concluding then, I would simply say that that only reaffirms my position that I think $750,000 is too much. If the goal is to use that in combination with a $500 fee, if I can dovetail these two things together, should there be a demo fund? Maybe, but you know, close to 1 cent on real estate in the CIP year over year, how much of that is going to be used if the goal is to actually rehab? That only reaffirms it should be either removed from the capacity in the capital improvement plan or reallocated to something like schools. So again, I know it's not exactly related, but they do go hand in hand, and I appreciate the information.
Dr. Wilder?
Yes, thank you for the information. I really appreciate it. You know, I've been one of the strongest advocates of making sure we had tools in our toolkit to address derelict properties. So I really appreciate that. I did get a call recently in reference to a gentleman's property in, I think, Darrington or whatever, I believe it was. The $500 monthly fee, how negotiable is that? I think you mentioned that they got to submit a plan, just so I know that process. I can explain it to him.
So that's a very good question. So first, for a building to be declared derelict, it has to be vacant. It has to be boarded up and secured in accordance with the building code. So essentially, it's condemned, and it has to not be connected to electric, water, or sewer, so not connected to utilities. Once the building is declared derelict, we send, what the law requires is that we send notification to the owner on the tax assessor's records. Once they're notified, they have 90 days to submit a plan that either says we're going to demolish the structure or we're going to renovate it. Now, that doesn't mean that they have to renovate it in 90 days. They just have to submit a reasonable plan on how they're going to achieve that. And if that plan is reasonable, we approve it and they are not billed $500. If they do nothing, that's when the $500 penalty is imposed.
Okay. think I need to explain that to him. Thank you, I appreciate that.
You're
It's
very welcome, and I'll be happy to
Yeah.
speak with them as my staff.
Do we ever refer them to different contractors or persons to be able to purchase their property?
We do have a list of contractors that are willing to go in and buy houses and renovate them, and sometimes we do put different people in touch with one another.
So is that a city, that's why when he mentioned, I got a little confused. Is that a city list, like an approved list, or a person get on that list? When he said that, I was a little, I say taken back. So you sure about that?
I
wasn't
wouldn't
sure about that
say,
part.
I wouldn't say it's an official city list. It's one that staff has compiled over a period of years of contractors that we know will go in, purchase the property, and actually renovate it and bring it back into use. Again, I don't want to imply that we are trying to force anyone to sell their property. We are absolutely not. But if it gets to that fact where they do want to sell it, there are people out there that are willing to do that.
Okay, great. Thank you. This is really helpful. Appreciate it. Thank you so
You're
much.
very welcome. Ms. Timmer?
Thank you, Mr. Martin.
Yes, ma'am.
This is probably actually more of a roll call comment, because we had discussed some of this in PDC in regards to derelict properties, but kind of piggybacking Dr. Wilder's comments, the possibility of maybe like a dashboard or a situation that people can engage with, so it's a very public process as far as contractors who may be interested in the properties or some of that turnover.
Yes, ma'am, and I was at home, unfortunately sick, but I did listen to that meeting.
No, you're good, I understand.
And we have a very good start on that dashboard. We are currently working to make sure that the data is interacting with it in the correct way, so that dashboard is forthcoming. And we've got a very good start on it.
That's great. And the other kind of in the same vein, something that had come up as I met with some community leaders is the difficulty of wills, and especially when you have a number of people who have the same right or access to a particular property, and so then you can't figure out right-of-way, or you can't figure out which descendant has access to the property, and it falls into disrepair. If there's opportunity to partner with a local nonprofit or to utilize some of those resources so that we can essentially help in that will scenario to create clarity of inheritance and property transitions. I don't know the logistics of that. I don't know the legality of that, but it's something I'd welcome exploring and understanding with the nonprofit sector as far as how that could be effective in the community for some of these properties. So,
Understood.
thank you.
Mr. Deemer?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Mr. Martin. I had a question regarding the effect that this, kind of piggybacking on what Councilman Feraldi said in regard to, you were talking about a 90-day plan to renovate, and I know that the real estate tax sort of gets, if I'm understanding correctly, frozen. If they are planning on renovating, they don't necessarily impact it. I'm wondering if you could explain that a little more. Maybe I don't understand it right, but how does that impact corporations and businesses as well as residences?
Interestingly enough, we have a meeting set up between the assessor and the city attorney in a few days to discuss that fact, but my understanding is that if they do come in with a plan to renovate or demolish, the demolition cost or the renovation amount, which has to be put on the permit, can be abated from the new tax assessment over a period of 15 years. So it is an incentive the state gave to people to actually renovate their property.
And that applies to businesses as well as residents.
Well, it applies to the building, whomever is doing the work, and it is transferable to new owners.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Anyone else? Thank you, Mr.
Thank you
Martin.
very much.
Next item is school board appointment nomination process. Ms. Finney.
During your April 8th work session, there was interest from council to consider options for how candidates are actually appointed to the school board. So I'll be going over our current method plus 3 proposals for you all to consider, but ultimately, this will be your process, and I want you all to feel comfortable with whatever you choose, and ultimately leading to a good selection for school board. So your current method is a motion and a second. So what this looks like is the council member makes a motion to appoint a nominee. Another council must second that motion. The council then votes on the motion, and only one substitute motion can be made at a time. Our first proposal is the ballot voting, and this comes from Councilmember Mischins. Council members nominate candidates. Discussion is held among council members. Each member casts a single written ballot vote. Ballots are read aloud, and each member's vote is publicly announced. A majority of votes is required to appoint a candidate. This most closely resembles what you all do for mayor, vice mayor elections. Our second proposal is ranked choice voting, and this comes from Vice Mayor Deemer. Voters rank candidates in order of preference, first choice, second choice, etc. First round, all the first choice votes are counted, but each member's vote is not publicly announced. If a candidate receives a majority, they win. If no candidate gets a majority, the candidate with the fewest votes is eliminated. Voters who choose the eliminated candidate as their first choice have their votes reallocated to their next preferred candidate who is still in the race. This process continues in rounds, eliminating the lowest candidate and redistributing votes until one candidate has a majority. And the third proposal is roll call voting. This comes from staff, and this is most closely resembles to standard practice for how you all reach consensus. So what this looks like is nominations are made from a list of interviewed candidates. Council votes yes or no on each nominee one at a time, not using ballots. Voting is done by roll call, and each vote is recorded publicly. Each council member may vote yes on as many candidates as they wish or none. A candidate must receive a majority of votes, so 4 out of 7, to be considered eligible for appointment. If only one candidate receives a majority, they are declared appointed. And if multiple candidates receive majorities, then the candidate with the highest number of yeses votes is appointed. So those are the three that we have in the current method. This is council's process again, so whether it's one of these, whether it's a hybrid that you all come up with, we stand ready to administer.
Thank you.
I have a question for city attorney. The ranked choice thing that I was exploring after having some conversations with you and others, my desire for a privacy ballot was behind that people wouldn't be voting against a candidate because either I voted for it or against it, or they voted for or against it. I didn't want that coming in. I wanted to be on the candidate's actual merits. So I was hoping that there might be a way to do that. But in talking with you, it sounds like having any kind of privacy in your ballot is not really, I'm an openness and privacy advocate most of the time, but when it comes to ballot privacy, that's one time I occasionally, in the voting in Virginia, we very carefully protect the voters' privacy with privacy shields and all kinds of things. Nobody gets to see your ballot. Nobody gets to influence it or hold it against you if you didn't vote the way they think you should have voted. So that's real important in standard municipal elections. However, we're a public body and we're voting for public positions. And can you give us just a quick overview on your opinion on ranked choice voting as far as privacy of the ballot?
Sure. The only, and before you asked that, I was actually
Ready?
speaking to Ms. Finney about it. The only component here that on the proposed method number 2 that I had issue with was not publicly announcing the vote. So normally, under any circumstances, written ballots are not permitted in voting processes with a public body. I think the reason we're able to do it the way we do it with the mayor, vice mayor process is because how each individual member voted is recorded in the minutes. It's just not brought up aloud in the normal fashion we do. We just show it on paper, and the papers are actually kept, as part of our records, as I understand it. So that's the only issue that I took with that, is just making sure we avoid what most folks would worry about, like a secret ballot of some sort to eliminate candidates.
If I could also speak to that, in my mind, any of that could be ratified by a motion out in public after a consensus is drawn. Or I guess in your case, the highest number.
Yeah, I'll just tell you that in general, my inclination on that one is less. I did want to make sure people are chosen by their actual merits, not by which one of us may or may not be in favor of a particular candidate. But since we can't really avoid that, I would probably withdraw ranked choice voting as a suggestion.
And
From my
this-
perspective, I'm only one vote.
Just to follow up on that, Vice Mayor, to avoid that issue, there's nothing that's, and I know there may not be an appetite for this, but just as you appoint other boards and commissions, you can have discussions in a closed session regarding the appointment and then come out and make the motions you want to make. It's still public. So you would still have that, I guess, privacy, so to speak.
Somewhat privacy.
In a discussion, but not as part of a vote.
Mr. Mitchell.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you for putting this together, Alicia. This is something that I've been trying to get to for, I think, since last year now. Could we go back to the mayor, vice mayor process slide?
This one? The ballot, yes.
That's it,
You're
ballot
correct.
voting, yes, thank you. So if you go forward one to number two, right, back, so I want to go, actually, let me go to number two first, the proposed method two. Where it says the process continues in rounds eliminating the lowest candidate and redistributing votes until one candidate has a majority. If you go back to number one, that's missing on there. And what it actually has in our rules of procedure is in the case of a three-way race, the candidate receiving the least number of votes will be dropped from the slate of nominees and another vote will be taken. So if we have like a 3-3-1, then whoever got one gets dropped off and then another vote's taken. So nobody would advance without having 4 votes. It's the same process and procedure for the election of mayor and vice mayor. And then to the vice mayor's point about people using whoever votes for who against them or whatever, the ballots, we write on the ballots or circle the ballots, the names on the ballot, and then they get passed down. The vote's already cast, nobody knows until the clerk reads that into the record. So, the vote's cast, and you're the one that reads who voted for who, and that's what it is. I do think that it's important to try to do something in a way that, just like you said, is gonna allow us to speak to the merits of each candidate rather than put ourselves in a situation where if you feel strongly against somebody on the school board that you have to speak against them. I don't think that's right. These people are volunteering their time, a significant amount of time. I would consider that the school board probably puts in more time than we do. And with all the discipline committees and different things, I'm telling you, they put in a lot of time. We need to honor their volunteerism for stepping up to the plate to apply for these positions. And I think it would be good for us to just speak to the merits of each individual and cast a vote. The only difference is you gotta read it because we get elected to vote and citizens deserve to hold us accountable based on how we vote.
Go ahead. Other people. Mr. Ferrari.
Why do we want to change the process?
So that's not something I could speak to. This
Yeah.
was just brought up in our work session and
Mayor,
I
that-
mentioned.
Thank you,
Yeah.
Mayor. That would be my question. I don't know why we need to change our process. What's so,
Speak to that if you want.
what's so, what's so wrong with our current process?
Vice Mayor.
I don't want to cast disparaging comments on the process that's been used. That's not my goal. But I have seen in the past with certain votes that we have a tendency to do some things that come back to bite us a little bit. And I'm trying to avoid the incivility of those situations and design a process. Very interested in elections. I've been working in elections. I care about elections. I've watched different types of elections. And we have a chance in setting this process of avoiding some of the downfalls. I've already mentioned one of those downfalls is that I find out that such and such is voting for it. Well, then I'm definitely not voting for that guy. That kind of bias I'm trying to avoid, right? That is what I would like to do. Another type of bias that I would, or not so much a bias, but a systemic animosity I would like to avoid, is that there are a couple of districts that I've encouraged at least 2 people to run for the same seat, okay? And I think they both would do a wonderful job. However, I don't look forward to the possibility, or the inevitability, actually, that they find out I voted for A over B. Okay, yes, they probably deserve to know, and I'll be upfront if they ask me, but I think that somewhat in the system, we built up something that might cause people to say, well, you know, they told me that I ought to run, and then they didn't vote for me, you know, and then they're angry. Or they find out I didn't vote for them, and they get on the board. And now we're, as a school board and a city council, trying to have a relationship. We're trying to not be, you know, adversarial. We're trying to work together and have a cooperative nature, which is called for in our council rules, cooperation. I want to keep the cooperation level up. I don't want to throw things into the system that may pit people against each other. So it's not that the old system was bad. There is no perfect system. I'm not trying to find the perfect system. But those are two things that I would like to try to design a system that avoided those pitfalls where I got to look you in the eye and I picked the other guy and you're mad at me and now we got to try to work together because you're on the school board and I'm on city council and the people expect us to get the work done, right? So that's my thought anyway.
If I can continue.
Yes, sir.
How does ballot voting solve that? Can I get an answer?
You've got to maybe ask him to address me.
I am. Whoever wants to try to address it.
Mr. Dean?
Yeah, I will. Talked about that. I'm not sure it does. I'm not positive it does. I want to have a discussion. I don't think we have to decide today. Is that right? Do we need to decide?
I'm happy to bring this back for a vote on June 10th.
I mean, these are good questions, Councilman. I appreciate it. Maybe
Mr. Missions?
Missions has an answer for you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So the way ballot voting, I think there's a couple different things that we're addressing here with this, with the idea. In a ballot vote, you're voting for somebody, not against somebody. If, let me pick Greg Patrick. Greg Patrick is our nominee for school board, and Winter Benda is our other nominee for school board for District 4. Okay? And there's a motion to make Greg Patrick the school board member. There's 7 of us. He's got to get 4 votes to be the District 4 school board member. And if it's a divided thing, if it's not unanimous, that means that 3 of us potentially could be voting against him, or 4 of us may vote against, you know. So there's a motion, somebody has to vote no to Greg Patrick. If there's a substitute motion, right, for Winter Benda, same thing. It could be 7-0, some people could vote against. When you're voting on a ballot and you're circling a name, you're just voting for that name. Now, let's say that there's a 3rd nominee, and I'm just gonna go around the table to Alicia Finney, okay? Alicia never got a fair shake once we had a motion and a substitute, right? Nobody got a chance to vote for Alicia once we have a motion and a substitute, unless both the motion and the substitute fail. So in a ballot voting process, you get all 3 votes, right? If there's somebody that feels strongly to vote for Alicia, they get an opportunity to vote for Alicia. And if Alicia gets 4 votes and Greg only gets 1, Greg drops off the list. Or Alicia gets 3 votes, Winter gets 3 votes, Greg only gets 1, Greg drops off the list, and then we do it that way. But in each case, you're always voting for somebody, you're never voting against somebody, and you never need to debate or argue the point against an individual.
Mr. Ferrari?
I guarantee you, Mr. Mayor, that I want the right to vote against somebody. That is a necessary element of this process, so long as we have an appointed school board. My only check, and I want to throw Matt against the wall every time he brings it up. No, Chris, you can't remove school board members. It doesn't make sense to me. You can appoint them, but you can't pull them off. It's just, it's silly, and I say that in jest. Like, that makes no sense in the law to me. The concept is, if the only check and balance I have on the school system outside of dollars is the appointment process. I gotta have the ability to vote against you. If I think you've done a terrible job, I'm gonna vote against you. I think that's a right all 7 of us should crave to maintain. I'm not hearing a compelling argument for a change. Here's why. Right off the bat, it still takes 4 votes to win.
Yeah.
We have that in our current method. The votes are still publicized. They pop up on the screen. Everyone knows where we're going. Everyone's still able to discuss if someone motions for Joe and it's seconded and another council member wants to talk about Susan, they can say that in the record. No, I want to vote for Susan. Main points, I insist in a friendly way that voting against someone for school board is an incredibly important message that council has, because it's the only check we have on who's running the school system. And then secondly, you can still discuss anything you want. And then thirdly, historically, this ballot voting is not unlike a convention rules. In my humble opinion, convention rules are used to manipulate the process. Historically, even in this own Commonwealth, we have decades and decades and decades of that at a much larger scale. But if I know that Chris will vote this way, and then this person gets mathematically this much, this person falls off, I can navigate it to a place that best suits me and my political agenda. To me, that's more politicizing a process that supposedly is not supposed to be political. So, for all those reasons, just keep it the same way. You already need 4 votes. You can debate it all you want. You can debate a person all you want. And I think it's important that we as council members retain the opportunity to vote no on something.
Mr. Wilder?
And thank you, Matt, for.
Mr. Reed?
So real quick, thank you, Mr. Mayor, real quick, to the points that were just made. Couple things to point out is I don't remember how many, but I know that there were some incumbents in the school board that have been removed since Republicans took over, right? And they're removed by not being reappointed. And if I remember, I don't think anybody voted against anybody. I think that there were motions made for different people, and the way that they were removed was not by a no vote against them, it was simply by a yes vote for somebody else. And it's the same process if you're voting for, if I feel strongly to vote for Alicia for school board over Greg Patrick or Winter Benda, I'm gonna vote for Alicia, and Greg may be the incumbent. You know what, when I vote for Alicia instead of Greg, that's gonna be a strong message to Greg. That's all.
Mr. Ferrari?
Prime example, there was a candidate that I voted against. I don't want to besmirch his reputation or character, but I would vote against him any day in the week. So I have voted against people to
Yes.
serve.
Okay. Dr. Wilder?
Can I see them before again? I'm sorry. That's not my notes. Was the last one? Yes. Okay. What's the difference between the last one? Is that the staff recommendation or staff suggestion?
This is the one that most closely resembles how you all reach consensus, or standard practice for that matter. So you would have as many yeses, there'd be a nomination process for those you interview, and then you'd have as many yeses for those nominations that you do in each district. So then going roll call, I would imagine I would name a name, and then you would say yes or no to that person. And we would do that for each nomination in each district. And then from that pile, they'd have to have a majority, but the most above a majority would win. So if there's somebody with a 6, 5, and a 4, the person with a 6 would win.
Okay, thank you, appreciate it.
Mr. Reed?
My thought is, if something isn't broke, why fix it necessarily? And we're kind of overcomplicating things for reasons that don't make sense. People are still going to know who we voted for, so that reason makes zero sense to me. And it does feel like some of the logic could be a little bit questionable and other reasons, and so I think the desire to be courteous in our comments is heard, but maintaining the process that we have while being courteous, knowing that our votes are still going to be known, I think we could, my thought would be leave it as it is, but note the, note what's been heard and respect that. That's my thoughts.
Mr. Dean?
To her point, I would just say that it will be known, but after the process is over, not during the process. And that's what I'm trying to avoid, is that somebody sees how you vote and decides they're gonna vote the opposite just because you voted for it. That's what I've sort of watched happen, and I want to avoid that. So yes, it'll be known afterwards, but as far as influencing the actual process of voting, I don't want crowdthink to take over. I want us to make it on the choice. And one thing I would say, in the final proposed method that I really do like, and maybe we could consider, is have a first round where we basically do all nominate people who we want to be interviewed. Because if there's nobody up here that even wants them interviewed, I say that we move forward to the next round and keep the process succinct and not force them to go through a process when there's not even one advocate for their candidacy.
You're talking about the interviews?
Yes, the interview process.
We have scheduled time, so beginning today at the close of our public hearing, you all can begin your selections for those you want interviewed. And then there's also some built-in time on June 10th. Mhm.
Very briefly.
Yes.
Unless you're looking at my screen, you don't know how I'm voting.
Well, I thought she just said that I don't want to speak. He hasn't addressed me correctly.
Excuse me,
So-
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
You may address the vice mayor.
All I'm saying is, I hear what the vice mayor is saying. Unless someone is looking at my screen, I have made a motion strategically that I have voted against my own motion before. So folks don't know, unless you're looking at my screen, how I'm voting. That's the only thing I would say. So it is still secret, it's then broadcast.
Yes, but it will be public.
Eventually.
At the end.
Yes. Ms. Alicia?
So it sounds like there is interest in, obviously, the ballot, but then also with the current method. Am I also bringing back, I heard I'm pulling ranked choice. Am I bringing back the roll call as well? Roll call voting for our vote on June 10th?
Not really. I was saying have the layer where we identify who we'd actually interview by nominating people, so we don't interview people that have nobody supporting them. That's in
We do that tonight.
the roll call, but we're doing that already.
Yes.
So I'm not a proponent of proposed method 3.
Okay, so I'm pulling number 3? Okay, so just,
You say that again?
it sounds like I'm just bringing back our current method?
Yes.
And then the proposed method 1 for ballot voting, for a vote on June 10th.
Okay.
Is that right? Okay.
I think there is consensus.
And I think the old method worked, and we should continue with that. I think Dr. Wilder is most familiar with the old method because he's been here a long time, and it has worked.
I've been outvoted 7 times, but it works.
Yes.
Sorry, I just have a quick question. I don't actually have a strong opinion on this one, but I do have a question for Dr. Wilder.
Yes.
Dr. Wilder, how have you previously done this in the past? Has it always been this last method that was done through the previous round? Or how has it been done throughout your tenure since you have the seniority?
Pretty much where Alicia said it. The current method has been pretty much the same method over the years.
Yeah, it's only in recent years, if I may answer that, it's only in recent years that council has elected to push this out in the public domain.
Since we've
It was
done-
all done in closed session, and then they would come out and ratify their appointments with the motion.
Okay,
'Cause
so
in the past
it
we-
was different.
In the
yeah.
past, we did it in the closed session.
Mhm.
But
Okay.
then, again, because of people's feelings and things of that nature, and to protect them and, that kind of stuff, yeah. But
Yeah.
then, they said, we'll make sure it's an open process, so we started doing it in public.
Thank you, Dr. Wilder.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, I've got my direction.
Thank you. Next one is item number 5 is Boards and Commission Quarterly Report. This will come before council for action on June 24th. Ms. Finney.
Thank you. More of me. Yay. This is your quarterly reporting for boards and commissions. This is Q2, so we will be addressing June appointments, terms ending in June, as well as capturing some vacancies that we do have. And since making this presentation, there have been a few updates that are not reflected in here that we'll go through. So our first opportunity that we have is the CVCC board. This group meets the third Wednesday of January, April, July, and October at 4 p.m. at CVCC. This group recommends budgets and long-term plans, oversees curriculum, selects advisory committee members, and sets student behavior rules. Members can serve up to 2 consecutive 4-year terms and will have 1 reappointment. The next is the City Employees Appeal Board. This board does not meet on a regular basis. They're only called to serve when employee grievance reaches the 4th step. This group handles final employee grievances involving demotion, dismissal, or suspensions longer than 14 workdays, as outlined in the city's procedure. Members can serve up to 3 consecutive 3-year terms. We have 1 reappointment and 2 current vacancies. The next is the Economic Development Authority. They meet the 3rd Thursday of each month at 8:30 in council chamber. They support local industry and trade through financial assistance to new and existing industries. Members can serve up to 3 consecutive 4-year terms, and there are 2 reappointments coming up. The next is the Historic Preservation Commission. They meet the 3rd Monday monthly at 4 p.m. City Hall right here in the 2nd floor training room. The HPC enforces the city's historic district rules and helps property owners make appropriate changes to their historic buildings. Members can serve up to 3 consecutive 3-year terms. There's 1 reappointment and 1 upcoming vacancy. The next is the Martin Luther King Jr. Lynchburg Community Council. They meet the 3rd Tuesday at 5 p.m. at the library. They suggest suitable community events for the Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. holiday. Members can serve up to 2 consecutive 3-year terms and will have 2 reappointments coming up. Next is the Museum Advisory Board. This is the one where the opportunities here are not reflected, what is out there. So they meet the 2nd Wednesday of January, March, May, July, September, November at 4:30 at Point of Honor. They help plan museum activities, guides museum programs within the budget, and works with the Museum Foundation on fundraising. Members can serve up to 3 consecutive 3-year terms. There's actually 3 reappointments and 3 upcoming vacancies. Membership requirements are there's at least 12 city residents and 3 non-city residents, so regional applicants are encouraged to apply. And our next board is the Lynchburg Redevelopment and Housing Authority. This again is one that does not have the correct reflected vacancies on here. They meet the 3rd Thursday monthly at 9:30 a.m. At the Housing Authority on Thompson Drive. They manage housing assistant programs and leads urban renewal and housing rehab efforts in specific neighborhoods. They can serve up to 3 consecutive 4-year terms. We actually have 3 vacancies for that board. And the board is looking for folks with educational experience, anyone who has worked with partners such as the school systems or colleges, Community Access Network, Horizon, Miriam's House, to name a few. Anybody with housing backgrounds are encouraged to apply. And lastly, we have the Building Code Appeals Board. They meet, their schedules are as needed based on rulings for building and fire code. Currently, this board is not active, so we have 7 vacancies.
Yes.
They hear appeals related to the application of building code and fire prevention code. This board plays a critical role in upholding safety standards while balancing concerns of property owners, developers, and contractors. They can serve up to 3 consecutive 4-year terms, and they do have a lot of technical backgrounds that are required for service to this board. So I'm going to try to go through this. Don't see Tom Martin here. Kent might be able to help me if I stumble. They need at least a licensed architect, a licensed engineer, licensed Class A building contractor, licensed Class A electrical contractor, licensed Class A plumbing or mechanical contractor, experienced property manager, and 1 citizen at large. If not available, they can select, you all may select at-large members based on these people's ability to render fair and competent decisions on building and fire codes. However, there should be at least one member who's an experienced builder, one member who's a licensed professional engineer or an architect, and one member who's an experienced property manager. So a lot of tech backgrounds.
Yes.
Our next steps, I'll be collecting applications through Monday, June 16th, and then you all are scheduled for a closed session June 24th. That QR code is our application, and as always, contact information is in the bottom. That's all I have.
Is there any discussion? Thank you, Ms. Finney. Item number 6 is increased rates for ambulance and related services. This item will appear before council for action on June 10th. Ms. Donna Witt.
Thank you. So, we just wanted to give you an update about what the current and the proposed rates are for ambulance and related services. City Council did request a review and subsequent proposal for increasing rates for ambulance and related services. So, as the mayor said, this is, we've already advertised for the public hearing for the June meeting. So here is just a simple chart that shows you what our current rates are, the Medicare allowable, and then the math that shows 100% of Medicare allowable proposed, and what that next change would be. So they're pretty straightforward, but again, this is something that the city has done in the past, is to increase to the Medicare eligible or Medicare allowable. And so that's simply what this is. And then the projected revenue is about $200,000 annually. And the 150% method is an accepted practice, and it's what most of our surrounding localities do as well.
Is there any discussion?
Question.
Vice Mayor Dema?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Who decides? I mean, these categories are pretty detailed, and I appreciate the detailed information. But that one fee for specialty care, advanced practice paramedic, net change $1,371.69. The person who makes that categorization and determination that this ambulance ride is a specialty care, advanced practice paramedic call, who does that?
I can answer that.
Go ahead.
It's based on what's provided. What's the level of service provided? So, if you're having an EMS supervisor show up and you're doing anesthesia in the field, essentially, it's going to be advanced practice paramedic call. It's based on the drugs that are used. It's based on the level of care that's provided. Specialty care, advanced practice paramedic. The best way that I can explain what that is like in the street would be like being on a helicopter with a paramedic and a flight nurse is kind of the most equivalent way. They essentially set up a critical care environment in the field, in the back of the ambulance, on the way to the hospital.
So there's pretty detailed objective criteria that really aren't.
The software determines
randomly
based
determined.
on what you do, how it can get billed. If they're documenting the interventions right and the drugs right as they should be, then that's what determines it. It's very objective.
Okay, thank you, Councilman.
If you go into cardiac arrest, the price go up.
Yeah. Emergency advanced life.
We don't want
support,
that
that's
for
what I
anybody.
want.
Yes.
It's gonna be $200 more expensive to do that, right?
Yeah, yes, sir.
And if they don't succeed, if you go into cardiac arrest, they're probably not gonna get the billing recoup.
You won't get the bill?
Okay.
You get billed $100 for
Yeah.
non-transport.
Well, you won't, you're not there.
Is there any more discussion? Thank you, Ms. Witt. Roll call. Mr. Ferrari?
Thank you, Mayor. Just want to add to the comments already shared by about Dr. Caldwell, and it is my regret that I was not able to attend this past weekend, but it is not lost on me the impact he, over the course of his life, made in this city, and the achievements that he is now taking to the folks above. And I am humbled to have known him. I'm proud to have disagreed with him on a number of things, but I am thankful that he was always someone that conversation was always productive, always one that bore the interests of Lynchburg at the front of his mind, and I'm going to miss him.
Mhm.
And I know hopefully there's other ways for us to honor his legacy at the appropriate time.
Yes, sir, thank you. Ms. Reed?
Likewise, I unfortunately had to miss both services because we were celebrating my youngest son's graduation. I had the honor of knowing Dr. Cardwell several different ways, and one of the things I respect him for all the same reasons. All of us should respect him. The history of our city changed forever because of his courage. And there are conversations I wish that I could have had with him about what he did as a young man that I never will be able to have with him. But with all that said, I'm grateful to know him, and I think what I wish that I could have said that I can say now is that what brought he and I together was our same care for our community.
Mm-hmm.
And when the 40 Ways Coalition started, it was because of the deaths that we had had over the 3 youth that first year we were, 6 months we were on council.
Yes.
And when I called him and I said, as the mayor at that time, I called him and said, Dr. Cardwell, we have to come together as a community. There's an outcry we're hearing from the community. Something needs to be done. And he said, I'm in, whatever you need me to do, I'll do. And I said, can we get everybody together? And he said, absolutely, we could meet at Diamond Hill. And so we had our first meeting and it was packed. And so he said, I think we've got something we can do together here, Stephanie. And so we kept meeting every single week after that until he got sick. So I'm so grateful for that we were unified over that and over other things too. But so we will greatly miss him. With that said, also, I would like to congratulate all the graduates of 2025. There's been some great celebrations to be had too. And we charge the youth of today to have courage, like Dr. Cardwell had, that they will be trailblazers and will be willing to, even if it's just them and by themselves or with a few others, be courageous to stand up for what's right. Thank you.
Dr. Wilder?
Yes, thank you. Again, I did attend both services for Dr. Cardwell. Again, he was an amazing legend in our community. I mean, I'm blessed in him. And being one of the first African-American student in AC class, and the persecution they had to go through just to be able to go to get an education. So the thought of that is just amazing that he had to endure that. And it's really not that long ago. So we continue to pray for his family. Lexi, he was my dissertation chair. So I'm thankful for him for that, because there's no way I would have made it without his support. And also, we had another loss at St. John's Episcopal Pastor Chris, I think it's Roswell. Rochelle, excuse me. A great man, a devoted man to our community. I think he's like 44 years old, I believe.
54.
54, okay. But still, that's very young. So continue to pray for his family. I pray for St. John's Episcopal Church.
Yes.
They're very active in our community. And also on yesterday, I attended the Memorial Day celebration downtown. I'm thankful to all the veterans and all those that came together from our community leaders to support that event. So another group, I think, put some flags around our community. So we're so thankful for the community working together to honor those lost in combat. Thank you.
Ms. Timmer?
Thank you. I'll echo the comments, but I sadly did not get to know Dr. Cardwell as well as many of you. But I do get to interact with his legacy a great deal as I go around town, and I'm grateful for that. So thank you.
Mr. Mission?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Two things is, one of the things that Dr. Wilder brought up was the Downtown Lynchburg Business Coalition, I think is what it is.
Yes.
Scott Campbell, Monica Herbert, I think were involved in getting those flags out. Wow, that was awesome. They did a great job. Really thankful to see that advocacy for them to do that. And I think those flags are supposed to stay up downtown through July 4th, so I thank them for that. Second, I had an opportunity to go last week to the school board meeting and to congratulate and welcome our new superintendent incoming for Lynchburg City Schools, Dr. Somerville Midget. Got to meet her and her husband. Really excited about getting to work with them and the opportunity we have to really get some solid leadership that's going to send our school division in the right direction. I'm excited about what she's going to offer and the leadership she'll bring.
Mr. Dean?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to mention my fellow graduates of the Lynchburg Citizens Academy who successfully are going to be recognized tonight at their graduation by you, Mr. Mayor. I enjoyed that thoroughly. I want to thank the staff that put that on. That's an amazing thing and a great opportunity. I hope more of our citizens will participate in it. There's always more to learn, which I learned. It was a great experience. Second thing I just wanted to mention in this roll call is I just want to congratulate the folks that have been graduating, as has already been mentioned, but specifically in Ward 3, I want to bring attention to the fact that 36,000 plus people graduated from Liberty University recently, and that number is amazing. I had no idea. I think I had a certain concept of how many people went through that school and got their degrees and got their certifications and got just the step to take them the next step in life and help them make more money, get better jobs, build families, build communities. 36,000 plus through that university. The folks there deserve credit for putting that many folks through a program and qualifying them. So my congratulations to the graduates and to the university.
Thank you all. I had the opportunity to visit Diamond Hill Church on Saturday with the city manager, police chief, and quite a few others. Dr. Caldwell hemmed me up one day and set me down on a wall. He said, "Larry," I said, "Yes, sir." He said, "I want you to know we have more in common than we don't have in common. As far as, people. Both of us love people. But I was on this side and he was on that side, but we was able to come together in a conversation and agree that we love people." And he went on to say, "Well, Larry, I want you to be a good statesman. You don't have to be a politician. Just be a good statesman. Be for the community." So I respect him. And he was a man of God. And also, last week was National Public Works Week. We didn't get the opportunity to congratulate these people, and I'd like to read this. Earlier this month, we celebrated National Public Works Week. I want to thank Lynchburg's public work employees, y'all hear me, Lynchburg Public Works employees, for all they do. They take care of our streets, sidewalks, bridges, buildings, and parks. They collect our trash, plow our snow, plant our flowers, fix traffic signs, and much more. Their work help keep the city clean, safe, and running well. So last week, I changed that. Last week and this week, if you get the opportunity, take time out to thank some public work employees. And that I do all the time. I meet them at 7-Eleven just about every morning, and I said, "Thank you, fellas, for what you do." And not lastly, and also I would like to take time to congratulate our municipal clerk. She's the best, When I got elected mayor, she said, "Come on, Mr. Mayor, we're gonna help you through this. Because when you look good, I look good." And I said, "Okay, I'll take that." And she's been an aide, a matchless aide. And I give her high honors because she really do what she do. And I appreciate that, Ms. Alicia. Thank you for all that you do. And all the municipal clerks around the state and everywhere else that do what she do. And something else, she got a national award. That's right. She won an award, did you? Was it national or a state?
State.
Okay, state award, yes.
Secretary for our state association.
Yes,
Yes,
yes.
thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Alicia. And closed session.
All right, agenda item number 7, consideration of a closed meeting, discuss the investment of public funds where competition or bargaining is involved, where if made public initially, the financial interests of the governmental unit would be adversely affected pursuant to sections 2.2-3711A6 of the Code of Virginia 1950 as amended, the subject of the closed meeting being specific to the negotiations regarding the Campbell County Utilities and Service Authority water purchase contract. And number 8, consideration of closed meeting to discuss the appointments for vacancies of the following boards and commissions, LINCAG, pursuant to section 2.2-3711A1 of the Code of Virginia 1950 as amended.
Okay. May I have a motion to go in closed session?
Second.
Second. Is there any discussion? May I have a vote, please?
Councilmember Feraldi? Councilor Missions?
Yes.
Councilmember Reed?
Yes.
Councilmember Timmer? Yes. Councilmember Wilder?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Deemer?
Yes.
Mayor Taylor?
Yes.
The motion passes. We are now in closed session.